Perfect. So, hi everyone, and thank you for joining for the first session of the last week of Three Make a Tiger the festival. Thank you for coming along this whole time, and thanks to Luke and Nik for joining. For anyone who doesn't know, Luke and Nik, Luke Norman and Nik Adam, are a photographic duo based between London and Copenhagen, who met while studying at University of the Creative Arts in Farnham. Their work stands out for its bright colours, fun energy, and use of post-production such as collage, paint, and text. Luke and Nik have worked with clients such as Evening Standard magazine, Refinery 29, Nicotine, The Fader, and many more alongside their own personal work too. So, hello again. I was going to start off by asking you a little bit about how you started working together at university.
Yeah, so when did we start? We started studying in 2007, and then towards the end of our second year, we had a module where we had to organise an exhibition, and me and Nik coincidentally got put together in the same group. And while we were making the exhibition together, we thought, why not make some new images for the show? So that was the first time we kind of picked up a camera and started doing things together. So that would have been 2009, and then for our third year, we just did the whole year together and did all our final pieces together, and we've been working together since.
Was there like a decision at the end of university that you were going to continue this journey together, or was it something that just happened more naturally?
I think it was all very natural, and I think that's why we've been able to stay together for as long as we have. Everything just seemed to be like really natural, and we, as Luke mentioned, we started working together in the second year, and then it hasn't even been a consideration to like stop it. So when we transitioned into like, you know, the real world outside of university, we just continued working as a duo, whether that was on like personal work or our first ever editorial. It was always done together, like to the point we are now where it is still very much done in the same way.
For sure. I know that a lot of people ask you quite often, like, I think people are quite interested in this idea of working as a duo and how it works. So I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit more about how you divide your time and have defined roles and deal with authorship and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that we try and do as much as we can together in every aspect of the collaboration. And it's funny because we only know the way that we do it, but there's other kind of collaborations out there, and I know people work differently. I think in some collaborations, some people have specific roles, but with us, we kind of do absolutely everything together. And, you know, there are times where one of us is sick, so then someone has to make sure that they can do every aspect of the process, and us being in two different places, that is even more so the case. So yeah, we do absolutely everything together, and we always talk everything together through first. And you know, for us, that's probably the most important part, is the concept and trying to figure out how we're going to approach something and fulfill it. And sometimes, you know, just the shooting is just a part of that process, but the whole package as such is something that we work on together and try and do together.
For sure. Like when I'm for context for anyone, I assist Luke and Nik as well, so I've had the pleasure of seeing them shoot quite a few times, and it's definitely something where I see you pass the cameras without even saying a word. Like it's very much a mechanical movement that doesn't take too much like pre-thought. It does seem very natural for sure. I was going to also ask, as I mentioned at the beginning, Luke lives in Copenhagen and Nik lives in London. What do you find are the perks of being situated in two different cities?
Well, I think the perks are definitely, you know, being in two different places. It's almost like we've become a little bit of a franchise where, you know, I'm in London and able to meet people in London and talk and discuss ideas over here, and likewise Luke is able to do the same in Copenhagen. So you know, a lot of people look to, you know, what difficulties it causes, but actually we always look at like the positive things, and things such as that are a real great advantage. Like, you know, being two of us means that we can we can reach out to like a bigger audience, and especially being in different cities, it gives us that opportunity a lot more than if you were maybe in one.
Yeah, for sure. It's Copenhagen got like quite a scene for the art industry, but I've personally never been.
Yeah, I mean there certainly is, and I mean I'd say the biggest thing to point out is that it's a much smaller place than London, for example. So it is a much smaller network. But yeah, there's certainly good and exciting things going on here. And like Nick says, we kind of got our feet in two different places in that sense, which is a really strong thing.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. Another strong part that I'm sure people question a lot is your use of manipulation in your images is what I think comes to mind when you think of Luke and Nik, or for me, I know that's something that's true. When did you first start using manipulation such as collage and mark making in the images? Is that something you've been doing for quite a long time?
Yeah, and maybe this is a good time to share an image about this. So yeah, I mean, we have been doing it since we started. I think we've always been drawn to like making an image look different beyond what we just see regularly, and I think that's to do with our impatience of just like normality and wanting to always push things. Luke, maybe you want to talk. I can't do two things at once.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I guess it's a good question in that I think the way that we manipulate stuff isn't entirely just, you know, cutting or drawing and things like that. And I'd say the first step was very much the double exposure. I think for us that was like a huge kind of stepping stone in terms of understanding that an image can do so much more than just what you see through the lens at that moment. And that was like a process that proved really valuable for us, and is still something that inspires us and leads to like exciting results. So were you going to pull up that visual, Nick?
Is that not pulled up?
It was a second ago.
Not for me, it's not.
It was.
Is it pulled up for you, Tami?
It's gone back down to small, but it's up for a second.
Okay, maybe I will try again.
To be fair, I was going to add.
Right. Whoa.
I was going to add on to that anyway. Set a starter. Yeah, that's it. That's there.
Sorry.
So yeah, so one of the places where we kind of really had a good go at developing our practice was we had a residency in India in 2010, I think, when we graduated. So we were there for a month, and an image in the top left there, that's an image we created while we were on our residency, and the image on the right is an image that we took when we were traveling, I think, in Japan. And that's another example of, you know, using similar techniques and developing those ideas through time. And these are things that we were working with early on in our practice, and we revisit and try and push further the further on in our career as we go. So you've got an image there on the left, which we did for a magazine a few years ago, and these guys were like mechanics, and then we painted on top of the prints. And then you've got a similar kind of technique with a slightly different approach on the right, which is something we did for a fashion editorial a couple of years ago. And yeah, again, bottom left image there, that's an image from India with a very unusual technique, and then an image in the bottom right, which is something we did recently. So yeah,
I think it's kind of cool, like when we do these things like chats or like talks with like universities that we've done in the past, because you actually reflect and look back on your work. And I did this today, and I think in our work and our processes, it's a lot of it is subconscious. And when you look back at work that you've done and like work that we're doing now, we don't always think that maybe it was something that we started like 10 years ago. And just looking at like those portraits, which I hadn't seen since we shot them, was a long time ago, about almost 10 years ago now. And to see that we were using paint there, and maybe we weren't too into it when we did it then, and I don't think we did anything similar to that afterwards. But the more recent ones on the right, which were done a couple of years ago, was something that we're a lot more into, and we've been using a lot more. So sometimes you do these techniques and there's something there, but maybe you have to sort of come back to it in a couple of years. Like that, the bottom left one was actually just really bad developing in like the black and white process element. And then I just think like those circles and those like the white, blank space is actually become quite relevant in a lot of the stuff that we do now, where we take out bits of the images on purpose. So yeah, it's kind of like just an interesting
yeah, you can definitely see like the development and how that's happened like really naturally. Another question was about how, when you use this post-production, to what extent do you plan it before the shoot? Is there anything that you think about before, or do you wait till after the images are taken and see what you get before you edit them?
I think normally we're very much. I think we constantly have ideas in our heads before we go into something, like if we particularly want to try a new technique, because a lot of our newer ones actually require a bit of forward thinking, especially if it's like double exposures, or we want to pair an image up with another image. So it does require a bit of forward thinking, and I wouldn't say it's like integral to when we shoot, but it's more integral to our brains when it's all happening in that moment. We might forget, so we do like jot things down on our phones and jot down some sketches. I can share another thing here, which I think will illustrate it, hopefully better than I can explain it. So that is technique planning.
Oh, cool.
Can you see that?
Yeah. So these are ones you made.
So yeah, this is this was for Refinery 29. We did like a World Cup piece for the Women's World Cup, which I think was last year or the year before, I can't remember. And the example here is we had a little sketchbook, and it was just, sometimes you just have to write down your ideas when they come to you, because you get very inspired in these moments. And me and Luke don't have the best memory, so writing things down is quite important. And I think this just shows it quite well. Not all those images turned out to be ones that we used, but we were obviously ticking off techniques and thinking of things to do for, like, the post-production stage later on in the project.
Do you ever
find... just like, I was just going to add on top of that, it's a funny one, because we also did kind of like a workshop a long time ago, like maybe 10 years ago, where we spent a weekend with some other photographers, and they were kind of absolutely drawing to perfection every single image that they wanted to make to the absolute T, and we'd never really tried anything like that at that time. So it was kind of an interesting point for us to like learn and see how other people approach it differently. And I'd say we're not completely at the other end of the spectrum, but we definitely have a lot of spontaneity in our practice, and not everything's entirely premeditated, and we like it when there is that room for those kind of new ideas that you maybe have on the spot. And by us kind of sketching out those ideas, it gives us that springboard to then make these images and hopefully explore further ideas on the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think our most exciting images, or the ones that we're most drawn to, are the ones that just happen naturally, and you maybe do something that you have no idea how you did it, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Do you ever find it in terms of commercial work, do you ever find it quite difficult to describe what you're going to do with the work in post to someone else, or do they normally trust you in how you act upon it?
Yeah, I think commercially it's very hard, because there's a lot more constraints than there is editorially. I think when we do editorials, we're often choosing ones that are allowing us to do what we want. So commercially, when someone comes in and they want our style that they've seen maybe in personal or editorial work, there is a bit of an understanding that it sometimes might have to get changed, or they want like a little element of it, which does become quite hard. But I guess something that we're sort of rehearsed at, and we kind of realize that may be the case. But the best ones let you do exactly what you want to do, and they often get the best results. So
yeah, having that sort of freedom. Talking about your personal and commissioned work, Have you learned to bring aspects of your personal work into your commissioned work, and what do you prefer shooting? Or I can imagine it's maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say that they both feed into one another, and with your editorial stuff and the work we do there, we definitely have that kind of freedom to maybe try out ideas more than we do so with our commercial work. And it can just be a simple example here, which Nick is pulling up, is the picture on the left is a photo we made while traveling of a good friend of ours. And it was just a quick idea we had at the moment while we were traveling, was to make this kind of double exposure with pieces of paper, and then it was something that we thought there was an interesting element there, and then we then incorporated that to the image on the right with a fashion designer called Harris Reed, which we shot for Muse magazine. So I think it's a good example of getting an idea, exploring it, in our own time or in our own personal work, and then that's something which you can then use for editorial commercial work. And then again here on the left, that's another image which we took in the States, and then the image on the right is again that Harris Reed story. But the funny one with that is I don't ever remember it being a conscious thing of, oh, do you remember that image on the left which we took in the States, let's try that on the right. And I do think, as Nick kind of pointed out earlier with the images from 10 years ago, there's a lot of stuff that just subconsciously happens. We maybe explore these ideas and you kind of put them to the back of your mind, and then they pop up one way or another, maybe that's consciously or not. And it's kind of nice through these talks that you get the opportunity to reflect on those.
Yeah, I feel like it seems like you've got like mood boards just in your head that you can pull from. When we're talking about like this commercial work or fashion work, potentially sometimes when you were photographing a designer and things, do you find you take a different approach to fashion photography, and do you feel like there is room in taking photographs through fashion that can be used for kind of activism or to say other notes that you feel personally?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say that we think a lot about the people that we're shooting and the work that we can make. I mean, we're not scientists or researchers or anything like that, but I would like to hope that we can maybe make a teeny tiny difference just on the way that people view art and culture, essentially, and hopefully we can inform that in a tiny way by choosing models who are representative of society. And this image which Nick's got up is something we did, I guess, last year for Sleek magazine, and it was an editorial shooting young activists. There were people who work in a variety of different things, like transgender rights or environmental rights, and it was a really amazing opportunity because it completely aligned with the type of people who we want to, I guess, promote or just give them the platform to share their stories and their point of view. And that was a really great story for us.
Yeah, I think also, like, it's often like we like meeting interesting people, and these people who are doing things, such as what Luke mentioned, it just really helps with the connection. And it's the same thing with if we're shooting a model. If we can have a conversation and get to know someone in a very short amount of time, you're able to make these little connections, which I think then helps you gain their trust, and then that enables us to do what we would like to do, and push things and try different techniques and so forth, which I think to start with isn't always easy if you're asking someone to like sort of stand on their hands and they've not even met you. It can be quite like an awkward scenario. So I think that's what's also quite important to us. And yeah, at the moment we definitely have, or we've gained the control of that in our editorial work, and are able to choose the people that we want to work with. Commercially, it isn't so viable, but maybe something that we'll try and work on more and more, like as things get better and so forth. Just some more examples here. Is it still on the old screen share?
Yeah.
So we had this idea that we wanted to represent and use people with like physical disabilities, which I think is something that's quite absent in the fashion world, maybe starting to filter in a little bit. And you know, as Luke said, we don't see ourselves as like activists, as us, you know, or people that are really changing the world. But you know, these small little things that we can do to maybe highlight things that we feel that are absent in society and culture. And you know, it's quite interesting with this series because we actually pitched these models to I don't know whether it was for a few other magazines, and they basically politely said they didn't want to use these models, and it was just a real eye opener that that was the case. And you know, we're not obviously going to name names, but yeah, I think it was an eye opener and
Not
something
proud
that
of.
we wanted to sort of bring in to our work.
Yeah, no, I love these pieces, and I think, yeah, like you said, no one is expected to change the world, but you know, if you can make a small difference and give someone another chance, if you've got that platform, I think that's a really great thing. And I mean, all of these people that you've photographed as well, like just boom with personality in every sense that you've taken. So I think that's also really important in your work, is a sense of personality. Then you're shooting with the manipulation stuff back again. Do you feel like when you're using that, does that progress your practice in terms of what you're trying to say potentially? Like, why do you feel like you use this manipulation?
That's a good question. I think it's just about pushing ourselves, and I think just pushing what it is we see, because I think there's so much you can do within the camera, and I'm sure, you know, you can continuously make beautiful images within the camera, but it's just another way for us to explore new ideas and push what it is we're making, in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that obviously for most people who are in the world right now, things have been put on pause, especially in terms of photography. I know that recently you did a shoot over the phone. I was going to ask if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how you found working during lockdown.
Yeah, I think it's obviously thrown up its hurdles, which I think we've tried to respond to. Obviously, like anything like this, it takes a bit of time to get your head around it, and whatever we do, we want to make sure that it's done as well as possible. We often like get asked to do video, and like the same situation, we kind of want to develop our ideas as we have with our photographic work over the last 10 years. So I think that's the commission you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously being able to be with people and like not having that been in the same room as them has a huge issue. And so we started working with found imagery to see whether we could turn like found imagery into something that we like, something that we feel is in our style. And then we started like getting friends to send us selfies that we were working with, and that's essentially what we did here with Billy Porter. And we sent him an email, and we weren't even dealing with him directly, we were dealing with the magazine that was dealing with him, so we didn't even have an email conversation, but we sent like this set instructions for him to take some selfies. And then we worked with those images, and as you can see in this example, he sent us some childhood photography that we sort of rephotographed and like cut out and used the same techniques that we would use if we were shooting on our film cameras, but obviously this was done like but then printed out and then like rephotographed, and with a bunch of other new things that we've just been trying out the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that you didn't have communication with him, because I was going to ask, like, was it harder to gain connection over the phone, but actually you didn't even get to speak to him over the phone?
Yeah, we had zero connection, which is kind of weird. I mean, often with, you know, celebrities or people that don't have a lot of time, you only get maybe 10, 15 minutes with them. So I think it's very hard to create that connection anyway. And it was something that me and Luke were discussing about before before this chat that actually I don't know whether the connection we would have made in that short amount of time would have been sufficient enough to get something different. So yeah, it was a very interesting task, and we're pretty happy with some of the techniques and some of the ways we can manipulate the image. I think we'd always say we'd want to be there and have that first control, but if you can't, then how do you try and make something work for you? And I guess this is our sort of ideas at the moment.
Yeah. So do you think you'd be willing? Did you enjoy it? Would you want to do more whilst we're in lockdown?
Yeah, I think it definitely throws up a new scope and new opportunities. I don't think it's going to be that easy to access people as easily as it was before, especially I should imagine people of this like a celebrity, because why would they put themselves in an unnecessary position? So I think it does open the door to like do something exciting.
We picking up Andy's microphone. What's going on there?
There was some extra noise. Another question, which I know a little bit about, but for a lot of people watching, they might be recent graduates, and I was going to ask, how was your journey from finishing university to getting to where you are today, and do you have any advice for us as graduates?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess our journey was that after we finished studying, we both kind of moved back home to our respective home places, and I think we both kind of just like took a bit of time off in terms of just recharging our batteries, and we both did our like work. Like Nick worked on a farm for a bit, I worked at a school, but throughout that time we were both still trying to push our photo work that we were doing together, and we were trying to get commissions here and there, but it's a bit of a slow start for most people. So I think we were very patient at the beginning of our journey, which I think looking back I'm really grateful that we had that attitude, because it didn't add any unnecessary pressure on ourselves. And then after that I think we just kind of focused a lot on assisting as well. So I think our last year of university we were assisting, and we kind of carried that on, and then Nick got a job assisting a full-time photographer in London, and I moved to Copenhagen and I worked at like a fashion house as a in-house photographer. So we were both still like working within photography and picking up skills and learning really important things which I know that we use on a daily basis, even if it's just like how to reply professionally on an email and small things like that. So it's just all about picking up experience, I think, especially at the start. That's the most important thing I personally think you can do, along with shooting, because that's the best way to learn, is just to get stuck in and also just keep shooting, because if you want to be a photographer, then shooting is obviously an important part of that process, and you learn so much from all those mistakes and all those things that you make along the way. So you just got to keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Nick, do you have any other advice as well?
Yeah, it just takes a long time. Like, I think patience, everyone's situation is different. We were able to go home, which is, a nice thing to be able to have done to stabilize us, I think. But, if you have to work and you have to do some shooting in the evening, those are the sort of things that we started doing when we moved to, London and Copenhagen respectively. And yeah, it just takes time. I think when we left, we were a bit naive and we wanted it straight away. But then when that idea finally, sunk into our heads that it was going to take a bit of time, and that's fine, because like, to be honest, if I look back at the work that we were doing when we left uni to like the work we're doing now, it's taken that long to really get it somewhere where we feel like it's our identity. I think if I look back at our work when we left uni, we were heavily influenced by people, and that's fine, because that's how it all works. You're always looking at someone and someone's looking at you. So I think just take your time and realize that it's okay if you're not going as fast as the person next to you, and so forth.
Cool, perfect. I'm going to open up the question box. So just in the chat box, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in there. I was going to ask in the meantime, what are you most excited about after lockdown to shoot? Or what are you excited about the shooting process? Are there things that you're happy to leave behind in this new normal and things that you want to pick back up again?
I quite like the and I don't think it would be forever, but with the Billy thing, it was quite nice not to have any of the noise that comes with the shoot. You know, the day before, like the day after, like, you know, unpacking and going somewhere and all this palaver. I think if we always did things like Billy Porter shoots, we'd probably get bored of that and would want to start going places. But it has been quite refreshing, just like as this is, you know, doing a talk from our living rooms, and like reaching out to people it's like, I don't know, a lot of things have changed, and I think some of those are quite nice. So that's something I hadn't missed. But what about you, Luke? What have you missed or not missed?
I'd just say just being together, because it's been the longest that we've not seen each other, I think, since we've known each other. So I'm just looking forward to being in the same space together and shooting and just not being alone. So that's going to be good. But yeah, I think like Nik says, still lots of positive things to take from this, and I think it's been a really good reflective period for us. I know, just taking the time to kind of think about our personal work and just reflect on our practice has been a really healthy thing. So we've definitely been grateful for that.
Sure, we've got quite a few questions that have come through. So Peter asks, back in the early days, you were influenced by I'm going to say this wrong, Taiyo and Nico's book, The Great Unreal. If you were to create a project similar to that, where would you like to visit? Unlimited budget, ...
It's that's a good question. Wasn't I think it's really nice, and at the moment we're working on a personal project. We always work on a personal project; they never surface. But we actually came to this point where we have explored a lot of countries. Like, you know, we've been lucky to done a residency in India. We've travelled to loads of places in Europe, both from like work and just on trips that we've done together. We travelled to America a couple of times, and I think we sort of reached this point now where we actually want to search within as opposed to always searching in these other places. And I think that's looking like closer to home, which, you know, whatever that, how that is defined, is what we're researching and looking at the moment. So, I mean, if someone's offering you unlimited budget, I'd probably say China, because I'm desperate to go to China, but I would artistically say home.
Okay, very good answer. Do you agree with that, Luke, or have you got somewhere else?
Yeah, definitely agree with everything that Nik said. China wouldn't be top on my list. I've never been, so I would like to go, but I went to Greece. Sorry?
You say it wouldn't be top or would be top?
No, I wouldn't be that high up. No offense to China. But I'd love to go to Greenland again. I went to Greenland years ago, and that was just like the most mind-blowing trip, most incredible place I've ever been. So I'd love to revisit that and see a different parts of it, because I only saw a tiny bit of it.
For sure.
That would be my answer.
Ellen actually asked something which follows on quite well. At university and past university, did you both have similar photography inspiration, or did you both bring different interests together?
That is a good question. I would definitely say that the influence of Taiyo Honorato and Nico Krebs are just like a huge inspiration for us, and they always will be, as is Jason Evans, who was our tutor at the time. He was a huge inspiration, and we both have huge respect for those artists. But it's funny because I remember Nik had this Julian Germain book, which he was really into at the time.
I love it.
And you still love it. And it was never something that I was really bothered about. But now, I don't know, with time going on, I can definitely see the value in that work. And looking back, I can see why it was such an important book for you. So that's like a good example of something where we maybe didn't have all the same ideas at the right time. But I think it's good to have different ideas and different inspirations. Otherwise, I feel like it'd be a bit boring if it was all the same.
Definitely.
I think just to add on to that, I think we've been really lucky, and maybe that's one of the reasons we've been able to work together for so long already, is that even though we do sometimes have these slightly different inspirations, the direction in what we want to do and where we're going has always been like very cohesive. And I don't think, I mean, to be honest, if there's an image that one of us can make and the other one doesn't like it, we would just drop it and like move on. But it's never got to the point where someone's been so passionate about something that they've done and the other person hasn't. So, you know, the inspirations filter in, but like the direction is, you know, like that.
Yeah, always on the same path. Jessie Boone Cowler, who you know well, has asked, how do you experiment with collaging negatives? So scary to ruin the original. Do you use coloured darkrooms or scanners or something else?
It was very scary the first time we did it, because we actually did the first like time we actually did it for like an editorial, and we didn't have time to scan stuff because our deadline was very close. So we actually just went straight in and cut everything up, which is very destructive. But I think sometimes when you do things that are maybe a bit foolish, or maybe you don't think so much, sometimes when you get the best results. So that turned out to be a great example of just going with your instincts and just doing it. But sometimes if we do have a bit of time, we do scan beforehand just so we have them. But it's interesting, I don't think we've ever gone back. So it really is a bit more of a safety net thing. Maybe that would be more useful for like a commercial job, perhaps. Like editorially, I think, or personally, we don't really scan everything. We just go ahead and cut it if that's what we're feeling we want to do with it.
When you cut things up and like hole punch and everything, do you save all those pieces? Do you archive them, or do you get rid of them afterwards?
Well, when we have our big retrospect at Tate Modern in who knows how many years' time, hopefully someone will go through all these negatives that we've cut up and pull them out and put them on show, because we do keep them. And certain ones where we do make like these collages, where they're all stuck together, we do keep them. Sometimes we change them after that, so they would be completely gone. But I think they make really nice objects. We always like daydream and like think, oh, if this was an exhibition, this would be amazing, because we'd have all these objects and light them up and everything. So as objects, they're quite precious. And I don't know, Luke, have you been keeping them as well?
Yeah, I've been keeping them. It's not a good filing system though. I've got like an envelope for each job, and then I just put all the leftovers in there and then just kind of seal it up and write whatever it was on there. So yeah, definitely keeping them for the big exhibition one day, but I'm sure they won't be in tip-top condition once they need to come out of the envelope.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for that big exhibition. Anyway, thank you so much for everyone who came, and thanks to Luke and Nik. We've got 3 more days of the festival, and on Friday we've got students doing one-to-one interviews on Instagram Live all day. But I hope you enjoyed everything so far, and thank you again for coming. See you later.
Thanks, Tami.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.